Great. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our webinar today, Making Your Go Electric Plan, Tools and Resources to Get You Started. I'm Joe Archunas with Electrify Now, here with my teammate, Shannon Wilson. We'll introduce Nick Stevens, our panelist, in just a second. Welcome. Great to have you all here. This webinar is being brought to you in part by the LEARN program. LEARN is a San Diego-based workforce education and training program that is partnered with Electrify Now to offer free energy efficiency and electrification webinars. Please visit the LEARN website for more information, www.sandiegolearn.com. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about your electrification plan. I mean, electrifying everything can feel overwhelming. There's so much to do. Today's webinar will walk you through how to get started, what you should do, and how to break down your home electrification into manageable chunks. And then we'll talk about all the resources that exist to help you do that. Second here. Okay, and this is part of our Go Electric series. This series focuses on the benefit of electrification for homeowners. There's so many benefits. They include lower energy bills, less pollution indoors, less pollution outdoors, lower carbon emissions, more comfortable homes, and increased safety. And throughout this year, we're going to be looking at all the different electrification technologies as part of our Go Electric series.
So for many people who are interested in electrifying, their first question is, as Joe mentioned, how do I get started? And that's because transitioning your home is it's a process, not a single project when you're transitioning to efficient electric. So an electrification plan is incredibly helpful. If you have an informed plan, it'll help the process go way more smoothly. And that's whether you want to swap systems out one at a time as they fail, or if you're ready to do multiple projects all at once. So today we're going to go over how to make an electrification plan, starting with taking a home inventory. So an important first step is to look through your home and take stock of what systems you have in place and what condition they're in. As you're doing this, you can give some thought to what upgrades are highest priority to you and what systems and appliances seem like really prime candidates for replacement. You can see someone here is doing an inventory and they're looking at their water heater. So you can see what the fuel source is, the capacity, and determine its age. Sometimes that's pretty obvious. In our inventory, we have a link to some information for how to determine the age of your water heater, if that's a little ambiguous. But you'll want to go through your home and just kind of take stock. We do have this inventory worksheet available for download. And in just a few minutes, you'll get a tour of an online tool that will give you another way to take an inventory.
Great. Another step on your electrification plan is to check your electrical panel. I mean, your electrical panel may be something you never think about, but as you electrify, it's something you want to look at. You'll want to see what is your panel's capacity. Most panels are rated by how many amps of electricity they provide, and typically they're either 100 amp or 200 amp panels. The top circle shows you where you can check for that. If you have a 200 amp panel, you should be good for almost any type of electrification you need to do at your home. If you have 100 amps, you can still electrify, but might have to put more thought into the devices you get, or you might want to upgrade your panel. You'll also want to check how much space you have for new circuits. That's the bottom circle in this slide. Don't worry if you don't have too much space. My panel doesn't have much. There are strategies for this, like sharing circuits, but chatting with an electrician, of course, is crucial, as they'll be able to help you understand your panel and map out what you need to do to electrify. We'll do a deeper dive on electrical panels in a future session. Creating a home energy audit is another step. Getting a home energy audit. It's a great idea. An energy audit will help you understand your current home systems and what might be lacking. For example, you might not have insulation in your attic, and that might be a good first step before you get a heat pump so you can right-size your heat pump. A home energy audit might also help you understand which appliances and equipment are oldest in your home and what might need to be prioritized for replacement. So that is a great audit, or that's a great idea. We also wanted to point out that there's no correct starting point for electrification in your home. Your value system should guide you on what to electrify first. For example, maybe your family members have asthma, like my family members do. And so getting that gas stove out of your home that's causing significant air pollution is the right first step for you. Or maybe you really want to get to quicker savings, lower utility bills. And so an electric vehicle or water heater might be that right first step. Maybe your home's drafty and you're tired of that on-off blast from your gas furnace, or you're looking for air conditioning as things get hotter. And so that heat pump is right for you. Maybe your energy audit reveals that you have some really old appliances, a 35-year-old water heater, and you should start there so you're not replacing an emergency, and that's the right first step. Or maybe you want to electrify quickly and on a budget, and yard tools and electric barbecue, which we'll be doing some sessions on in the future, are the right first step there.
So if you're a homeowner, you likely know that choosing the right contractor is really key to a successful project. We recommend that you compare multiple estimates from trusted local contractors that are both experienced with electrification and enthusiastic about electrification. Always make sure you use written contracts with the contractors you work with, and make sure you ask them about incentives. Reputable contractors are usually very knowledgeable about the incentives, and they can help you select the equipment that will qualify for the incentives, which is pretty important. If you are in California or Washington, you can check out switcheson.org, and that has a helpful database of electrification-friendly contractors. And there are others as well, but this is one that is good if you're in California or Washington. And then I mentioned the incentives. So getting informed about incentives will really help this whole process be more affordable. There's a combination of federal, local, and utility program incentives that will really help kind of lower the cost of all of these upgrades. The Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA, provides federal tax credits and soon upfront rebates for almost every electrification project, as you can see here. Everything from the pre-work of electrical wiring and panels, energy audits, through weatherization, installing equipment, getting an EV or a charger, rooftop solar, and batteries. So all of this has incentives at the different levels. There are annual limits on the tax credits. Rewiring America calls this sort of an electrification bank account, though, because you can claim tax credits every year for the qualifying upgrades that you make. So if you plan out your upgrades over time, then you can take advantage of these tax credits. And there are some helpful online tools for navigating the incentives. Again, if you're in California or Washington, Switches On is a great option. And the Rewiring America Incentives Calculator, which you'll get a peek at in a minute, also has a lot of great information about incentives geared towards the specifics of your household.
Awesome. Electrifying your home, especially if you have a lot of gas equipment like mine did when we bought it, is a process. And as Shannon was saying, maybe it should, and maybe it's better to space it out over time so you can maximize the rebates. Planning your electrification over time is what we did. We tried to tackle one big piece of equipment per year. When we first moved into our house, we got heat pumps. Then our stove was on the fritz, and we got an induction stove to replace our gas one. After that, our water heater was over 20 years old, and we wanted to replace it before it failed, so we got a heat pump water heater. When we were ready for a new vehicle, we got an EV. It's just planning your electrification over time is a great strategy. It doesn't have to happen all at once. Okay, so there's lots of resources to help you plan your electrification. Of course, check out our website, electrifynow.net. We have topics, we have all these topics covered in depth with links to some of the video resources that we've created on each of these electrification technologies. As Shannon mentioned, check out the Switches On for lots of great resources on electrification, and Electrify Oregon, if you're in Oregon, has a lot of great info as well. And now we're going to do a deep dive on one amazing new resource that came out this year, created by one of the leading organizations nationally in electrification, Rewiring America. This personal electrification planner allows you to plan how you will electrify and gives you a more in-depth guidance to everything we've been talking about. So let's get over to that, and I'll introduce our panelists today. Nick Stevens. Nick is co-founder and president of Go Electric Colorado. It's an organization empowering Coloradans with one-on-one support to go electric in their homes and communities, because so many of us need that one-on-one support. He's a BPI certified building analyst professional and a software engineer with more than a decade of experience. He is a founding member of the Rewiring America software engineering team and co-architect of the personal electrification planner, which we'll be talking about today. So Nick, great to have you on, and I'll stop sharing and have you take it away. While Nick's getting ready to share screen, folks, please put your questions in the Q&A. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. And it's great to be here with everyone. As Joe said, I'm going to be talking about the personal electrification planner, which I have up on the screen here. This is our homepage for homes.rewiringamerica.org. You may have seen the rewiringamerica.org website, which is a little more policy focused, but we've been releasing more and more content specifically for individuals who are trying to do this in their own homes. So the personal electrification planner is a free tool. We're a nonprofit, so we're not trying to make money off this or anything like that. So it's completely free. And if you want, you can feel free to pull it up and go along with me as we do this. And just know that any data you put in here is totally secure. We're not going to share it with any third parties or anything like that. But yeah, some of the reasons you might want a personal electrification plan, and Joe mentioned some of these, but everyone's situation is unique. Their home's unique, their cars are unique, their commutes are unique. So your plan should be as well. So we factor in a lot of those pieces as we build an electrification plan for you. And having an electrification plan, doing a little planning up front can help you to save money in the process. It also simplifies what is a pretty complex process. We have a number of how-to guides in the personal electrification plan for each one of the projects that we're going to talk about. And you can also balance a number of trade-offs. So Joe talked about some of these earlier, depending on what you're most interested in, whether it be air quality or maybe saving money, might determine which plan you go after first. And our model essentially, it crunches dozens of factors and compares to hundreds of different types of homes to deliver you cost and energy savings, incentives for these projects, and your climate impact on them. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and jump in and start kind of walking through this. I've already signed in here, but normally you'd click login up here, and you could log into a plan, create an account. But I'll click into my planner, and this is going to take us to the onboarding flow. And for the purposes of today's exercise, I went ahead and just grabbed a random home in San Diego to go ahead and try for our electrification plan. Hopefully no one knows who's living in that address. We have a couple different home types on here, house and townhouse. We do hope to provide additional types in the future, such as mobile and manufactured homes and condos and things like that. Right now, we're only supporting house and townhouse. This is primarily a tool for homeowners. We do have renters content, though, that's available on this consumer website that doesn't even require a login. So feel free to look into that if you're currently a renter. For now, though, I'm going to go ahead and keep with this, and I'll click next. So this is our default setup for a home based on homes that are in this county of a similar type. So we pull a bunch of defaults and make our best guess about what your home may have in terms of square footage, heating fuel, type of clothes dryer, all that kind of thing. So if you have a home that's slightly different from those in your area, you might need to go in and make sure that you check these. But I would recommend checking all of these anyways and making sure that they're all correct. For the purposes of today's exercise, I'm just going to go with the defaults minus filling this one out, and we'll click next. Here, we just have a few questions about, what is your motivation for electrifying? The idea here is that in the future, we'll be able to kind of tailor the plan a little bit more to these motivations. And then if you have a vehicle, then you can select a vehicle and your engine type and whether you have an EV charger or not. If you live in an area where you don't need a vehicle, you can go ahead and click no. We'll just skip that part, and you've already got part of your plan done. So with that, I'll click next. And then this final step of the onboarding process is income. We use this information to determine your eligibility for certain rebates and tax incentives and other things of that nature. So I'll go ahead and put a value in here for now. And with that, we get our electrification plan. So we've crunched all the numbers, and this is what we've come up with for this home in San Diego. And I'm just going to kind of speak real quick up front here about a couple of the items that are on this plan. You'll see that we have an incentives line item for each project. This is based only on federal incentives right now. We are going to be adding state, local, and utility incentives in. In fact, our rewiring calculator, which you may be familiar with, and I'll show that a little bit later, has launched state and local incentives in a number of states and territories. So Colorado, Illinois, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Virginia, Vermont, and DC. All of those we have state, local, and utility incentives for in our calculator. And we'll be bringing more and more states online and bringing that into PEP pretty shortly here. The other thing I'll mention is, so bill impact. This is, your approximate impact from doing this project on your yearly utility bills. So things like pre-wiring and home energy audit won't have any impact. But if you get an electric vehicle, you could save up to $1,800 in this case per year. And then upfront cost, this is before all of the incentives that are available to you. So this is just your upfront cost. And then, depending on what incentives you're actually available for, you'll be able to subtract that cost to get to your actual net cost. So I'll dive into each one of these projects and we can talk about them. As Joe mentioned earlier, a home energy audit is a really great place to start for any electrification plan. An energy auditor can do things such as a blower door, which will help you determine how tight or leaky your home is. And they can also give you some direction in terms of weatherization. And weatherization, so doing air sealing and adding insulation, can really bring down your install and operating costs. But more than that, it can actually make for just a way more comfortable home. We spend a ton of time in our home, and just spending a little bit of money on weatherization can go a really long way to home comfort. It's also really great for heat pumps. Having a fully weatherized house will help a heat pump run a lot more efficiently. Another thing that an energy auditor will consider is health and safety in your home. If you have existing fossil fuel appliances, they can test those to make sure that they're not leaking any carbon monoxide into your home. So they'll do a combustion safety test. And if one of those fails, it could be a big impact on your electrification plan. It may be that you want to tackle that one first. So it's a really great thing to do first to kind of get an idea of prioritization for the rest of the plan. And I'll click into one of these projects here. So we have project detail pages for each one of these. These include a quick introduction to the project. We have some cost and benefits on here for that project. Some projects have more of these than others. Energy audit's pretty simple and straightforward, so not as much here. You can see rebates and credits for those, a project guide, the ability to look at a contractor, which I'll get into more later, and then some more info linking out to sections and frequently asked questions. So going back, looking at pre-wiring here real quick, which Joe mentioned, great idea to take a look at your panel and see what your current capacity is on that biggest breaker, which will often be up at the top. As Joe mentioned, if you don't have a 200 amp panel, there are opportunities to still electrify. We have a great thing here called the Watt Diet, so how to electrify on a 100 amp panel. You can check out resources like that on these project specific pages. And so that's a good one to check out if you have a smaller panel. But another reason to consider doing pre-wiring and panel up front is you can save a lot of money by doing the wiring for your stove, your EV, your dryer, and your heat pump water heater all at once, rather than breaking those out and doing them in separate projects. Of course, it's perfectly fine to do it that way. You just may, have an electrician coming out to your house a lot more often than might normally happen if you did it all up front. Now to get into the projects where you can actually save some money and really cut your carbon impact, and that would be these projects down here. So I'll start with the EV is often the biggest climate savings and the biggest personal cost savings as well. So often you'll see that at the top of this list. We have information in here on whether or not you would want a level 2 charger. In most cases, yes, it's going to help you to charge a whole lot faster. So you can click into that project and learn more info about that. We have energy bill impact, climate impact on here as well, and a whole bunch of information. On I'll talk to here about solar. So solar is another really big opportunity for cost savings. And I understand not everyone has the ability to put solar on their roof. There's also the opportunity to do community solar where you sign up for a solar farm. We have some information on that on the project detail page. We also talk a little bit about batteries on that page as well. But primarily this project is about getting solar. I'll say a quick note too about sizing for solar. How you size your solar system is going to change depending on the number of electric appliances that you're going to be adding. So if you do solar before you do all of these other upgrades, make sure that whoever's designing your solar system is considering what your usage is going to be once you've done all of these upgrades. So want to kind of time those things specifically. It is possible to just go ahead and do community solar for now, and then add solar to your roof after you've done these upgrades, so you have a better idea of what your electrical usage is, and you can kind of fine tune it. And then one of our favorite ones to talk about is always the heat pump. We combine heat pump and weatherization into one project in the electrification plan. So a heat pump is great if you haven't heard of one. It both heats and cools. It's like a two-way AC. Same technology as in your refrigerator, just goes both ways. And they tend to be about 3 times more efficient than any fossil fuel heating resource. We also break out weatherization costs here. So if we go to the project detail page, you can see the cost for a heat pump specifically, and then the cost for different types of weatherization. And depending on your home and the results of your energy audit, you may not need some of these things. So you may be able to totally skip them and save a whole lot upfront on that upfront cost. And doing weatherization upfront can sometimes allow you to install a smaller heat pump than you might otherwise. You'll often do what's called a manual J, and the manual J takes into account the weatherization of the home. And it can sometimes require a smaller heat pump if you have already done weatherization. So that's another reason why we have some of these pre-work projects. Let's see, and Joe's favorite, the heat pump water heater here, we'll get into. So heat pump water heaters are 3 to 4 times more efficient than traditional water heaters. One thing to consider in doing a heat pump water heater is they can often be a little bit larger. So you want to consider that for any space requirements you may have compared to your existing water heater. But they're really incredible devices. They have extremely low electrical draw compared to if you've ever seen like the on-demand water heaters. A lot of times, because we talk about, sizing your panel appropriately here, a lot of times those on-demand water heaters will take a really, really large chunk of your electrical capacity from your panel. However, heat pump water heaters are a pretty low draw, so a really great solution for electrifying your whole home. If there's any chefs out there in the audience, hopefully you've heard of this next one, which is the induction stove. So if you've previously used an electric resistance stove, like I had one of those at my old houses, you will be amazed by an induction stove. It is just an absolute incredible electric device. You get far better power and control than both gas stoves and electric resistance stoves. You can boil water in something like 90 seconds for your pasta. And you get immediate response to temperature changes when you do them with your knob or your dials on there. And one of the huge things that was mentioned earlier, there's no pollution with an induction stove. There's a study that was done that attributed 13% of asthma cases in the US were linked to gas stoves. So if you have small children or any pre-existing conditions, this can be a really great one to do for your air quality impact. And I'll note on this one specifically, this one actually shows bill impact going up. We don't want to hide that. There are some things where there might be an increase in bills due to going electric. That's why we encourage you to do this plan so that you can know up front what the differences may be. I will note, mileage may vary a little bit on that. Everyone has, very unique things. The shading from trees outside your home can change, the cooling and heating capacity of your home. So it's not going to be dead on perfect, but we get pretty close to give you an idea. And the last one I'll talk about here is the dryer. We have a lot of different recommendations. You can use a heat pump, a condenser dryer, or an electric resistance dryer. All are great. All are great for getting off of gas. And then I want to show real quick, I'm going to go ahead and exit the plan. So we have our incentive calculator in here that I mentioned earlier, and we'll go ahead and pull up some incentives. So we'll break out, this is where you can find the state, local, and utility incentives if we've launched them for your state. And so you can find those in here. And then another tool that's really great is as you're going through and doing these projects, you're going to need contractors for help with a lot of them. So specifically, we have a zip code of 92124. We'll enter our project type. I want to do actually a heat pump and hit search. And we'll give you access to contractor networks. So you heard switches on earlier mentioned, and that's one of the contract networks that we link out to. We're going to be adding specific contractors to this in the near future, but for now we're just linking out to places where we know they have an established criteria for contractors as we're kind of building our own. But the goal is to be able to get you 2 contractors to help you complete these projects, and these are great resources for doing so. And there should be results for every project nationwide. And we'll be slowly adding more and more of those over time. A couple of things that we're working on bringing into this plan coming up. As I mentioned, we're going to have state, local, and utility incentives for a lot more states. And then we're also adding those specifically to the project pages that I showed earlier. We're also adding additional languages. You'll see we already have the calculator in Spanish. And we have some of our consumer content, like the project pages in Spanish. We're trying to get the entire site converted over to Spanish and add additional languages on top of that, so that everyone who wants to can access this. And then we're also going to be developing some project-specific tools like a likely savers widget and a heat pump tool. After you've got a chance to check this out, if you have any feedback, you can go down here to this Give Feedback button and click that. And we'd love to hear what you have to say about the tool. We read every single piece of feedback, respond to everything we can. And we'd really appreciate any feedback you have. You can also send it to homes@rewiringamerica.org. And yeah, I think with that, I'll go ahead and pull the planner back up. But yeah, I encourage everyone, give this a shot, and would love to hear what you think about it. Our main motto here is, whatever you can do to kind of wrap your head around these complex projects is great, but when it dies, electrify is what we like to say, and we want you to be prepared for doing that. And I think this is a great way to take a step in that direction.
Love that, Nick. Thanks so much. Maybe it's like before it dies, electrify, right?
Yeah, before it dies for sure, but certainly don't go trying to put in a new gas water heater without going and looking at all your options in an electrification plan.
Love that. Cool. I specifically want to call. I love that project detail page that you had, and the 100 amp panel, or how to electrify a 100 amp panel. Having that resource is just fantastic. All right there for folks.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we've got some questions coming in that we can help field here for a couple minutes. Questions on this personal electrification planner is one really important tool. What about, some folks were asking for some of the one-on-one coaching as well. I know you had started that in Colorado, but any advice for folks who are looking for an advisor to help them in addition to this online platform?
Absolutely. If you're in Colorado, go to goelectriccolorado.org and we can give you a hand. If you're not in Colorado, one thing you might consider doing is going and getting trained to do this yourself. So we have a program, an electrification coach program. And the best way to find it right now, this is kind of a little bit backwards, but go to the renters and go to electrification for renters. And we have these programs down at the bottom here. There's a Why Electrify course and an Electric Coaches program course. And both of these will give you all of the information that you need to kind of get started with electrification. And then the Electric Coaches program will go a step further than that and teach you how to become an electric coach. Now, there are existing programs out there for electric coaches, so you can check and see if your community has one. I know Massachusetts has a great one called Heat Smart Alliance. And we're training these coaches throughout the country right now. So I hope that every community is going to have these slowly. I hope that in the future, we're going to be able to actually connect you directly to a coach within the personal electrification planner, but we have to kind of build up the coach network first and get everybody trained. So if that's something that you that you would know would benefit you, maybe just consider becoming a coach, because probably your friends would benefit from you being the coach. And we'd love to get you in there to do the training. The training is completely free. There's no cost for it at all. It's a 4-week training. And yeah, it's a great way to kind of learn about this stuff and learn how to do it on your own home.
Great. I see another question quickly, and what one person is asking about, if they have a triplex, how do they use this? How do they use this planner, since their building type isn't quite in there in the planner? Any recommendations for folks who don't have a housing type that the planner is supporting right now?
I think, but I'm not, I'm not an expert on that part necessarily. I'm not an architect, but I think that the townhouse sitting in here would cover that. So let me go ahead and reset here. So we have the townhouse setting. I think that would apply for a triplex. It's not going to work necessarily for like a condo, like a multi-story condo. It would probably be a little bit off. You could certainly go in and try and put your address in and just kind of see what comes up, and it might give you some kind of idea. But I wouldn't say, if you're in a condo that would work. But I think a triplex would absolutely work for the townhouse setting here.
Great, thanks.
I see a couple questions about induction that we might be able to answer. One of them was if the cost listed in the planner for induction includes the cost of new pots and pans. And I'm assuming not, but you may not need new pots and pans. Most pans work, you can test them by sticking a magnet to the bottom of your pot. And if it sticks to the pan, then it'll work with induction. So cast iron and stainless steel pots are all induction compatible. It's just aluminum, glass, and all copper that won't work. So you may not have to replace all your pans, but maybe just get a 1 or 2 extra. And the other question about induction was about, I believe, let's see, where was that? Something about the cost. Maybe the planner is saying that there might be a cost increase and an energy increase when you use induction.
Yeah, so the plan shows that specifically in this case. That might not be the case for all homes, so I encourage you to go and take a look at that. So yeah, I don't know specifically why there's an increase in energy on this, this specific home. It's hard to kind of know, exactly why the model might have said that for this home, but I haven't been inside this home, so I just kind of chose one randomly. But I know for me, like I have an induction stove, and I have not seen any major increases from doing this. I've done everything but a heat pump water heater, and I've seen decreases for utility bills across the board.
Great, and then yeah, maybe you were showing that little part on the induction stove and which pots and pans work. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have these project guides down here, and we're actually going to be launching a feature where you can go through and kind of check these off one by one. But we have one section on here about testing your pots and pans, and Shan was exactly right. If you put a magnet up to it, it should give you a good idea as to whether it will work in induction on an induction stove or not.
Right.
It does not, to answer the first part of that question, though, it does not include the cost of new pots and pans in the in here. But you can get most pans nowadays will work with induction, so you can get them pretty cheaply.
And Nick, maybe a clarification. Some folks are wondering, will this work in my area? And then did the cost translate by the area? Like for example, the savings, did that translate by whatever zip code they put in?
It does. So the only 2 places we don't currently have support for is Hawaii and Alaska, and that's just because the ResStock model, which is an in-rail model, the National Renewable Energy Lab, they don't have Hawaii and Alaska yet. So we're working to get those in there, but it will work for every other place in the United States. If you have a home that's an outlier, it may be a little bit different, but for the majority of homes, I think this should work, and the costs do adjust based on location. A lot of our data is coming from a lot of our upfront cost data, I should say, is coming from Massachusetts and California, which tend to be more expensive places, but we adjust that for location-specific costs.
Perfect. Shannon, do you have any questions? I saw one on batteries that some folks were wondering if batteries will be a technology featured in the planner, stationary batteries for homes.
Yeah, so we do talk about batteries in the solar project. They commonly are paired together when they're installed, so we decided to talk about there. But we don't have a specific breakout project for batteries, just because it's not something that everyone is going to want, and it's not something that you necessarily need to go fully electric. So if you want to learn about batteries, you can do that on the solar page. We'll have, it's not included though in the upfront cost breakdown. And we don't have any plans to add battery upfront costs at this time, but I think it's something we certainly could do in the future.
I see a question in the chat. Someone's wondering, they have a tankless gas water heater in a closet, and they're wondering if a heat pump water heater would work for them. Joe, you might know that.
Short answer is you should definitely look into it. You just want to make sure your heat pump water heater can get the air space that it needs. It usually needs about between 450 and 700 cubic feet of air. And so sometimes closets don't have that much airspace, but there's easy ways to either put a vent or a louver door, and you can put a heat pump water heater in an interior closet. We have done that in our house. So as long as you make sure it has enough air, yes, and you will get some cooling from your heat pump water heater, so you want to think about that as well. Great. Well, any last thoughts, Nick, for folks who are getting started on their electrification plan? What should we leave them with from this tool?
Homes.rewiringamerica.org. It's totally free, so there's nothing to lose to go and try it out. And hopefully it'll help wrap your head around what is unfortunately a somewhat complex process, but we give you all the steps to break down each one of these projects and as much information as we can. So check it out, send us some feedback, and we'd love to hear from you.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Nick, for being on and walking us through the personal electrification planner. Hope everyone gets to try that out and spread the word. Let us know if you have any questions on your electrification journey. And thanks for being with us. And as we say with all our webinars, good luck on your electrification projects. We'll see you soon.